Dave Mustaine has had one of the roughest careers in the rock industry. There has been friction from people he always thought were his friends.
So many things had come between the whole reason we had gotten together, which was to play music and to have this band.
And when you can't even trust the people around you, it means people who aren't even your friends are bound to screw you over. That's why at 63, Dave Mustaine has come forward to name the most evil people in the industry. Starting our list at number 6 is Gene Simmons. From the moment Kiss emerged, the band's business engine ran on the dual tracks of spectacle and control. At the center stood Gene Simmons, a figure who understood that a rock band was more than just music. It was a brand, a machine, a hierarchy. Simmons had overseen the departure of original members like Peter Criss and Ace Frehley on his watch, a revolving door that made it clear. In the Kiss empire, the only thing valued above the show was control. He admitted publicly that when band identity diluted, the fingerprint was diluted as members within the band started to veer from the band. For Dave Mustaine, that kind of industry behavior hit a nerve. He had been one of the founding guitarists of Metallica, only to be dismissed before the band's ascent. He recalled how he was so hurt by being told he was gone with no second chance. What? No second chance? No warning? Come on! It was personal. He watched Metallica explode, and Simmons's unflinching business-first approach in Kiss mirrored the cold dismissal he had endured. Mustaine viewed Simmons's orchestration of internal band politics, replacing original members, maintaining absolute authority, as emblematic of everything he felt was wrong in the industry. The show mattered, yes, but not at the cost of loyalty, not at the cost of authenticity. That kind of management to Mustaine had an evil undertone. When art becomes machine, when brothers in arms become replaceable parts, it disrespects the core of what rock was meant to be. Then, Simmons made a remark that cut raw. At a Kiss appearance Mustaine was present for, someone called to Simmons, "How about a Kiss reunion?" Simmons replied with a smirk, "How about a Metallica reunion?" Mustaine listened and felt the words hang in the air, not just a joke, but an echo of his former band's trauma. He later said, "And I went, 'cause Cliff had died, you know? And I thought it was just not good for him." That quip to Mustaine went beyond the casual barb of rock banter. It struck at the memory of Cliff Burton's death, of Metallica's transformation, and of the wound of being ejected. Simmons, a man Mustaine once idolized, appeared indifferent to that history. For Mustaine, it confirmed something he had sensed all along, that Simmons's maneuvering around Kiss was less about brotherhood and more about empire, less about art and more about legacy, money, image, continuity. When Mustaine later stated, "Gene likes giving me a hard time," he did so with full transparency. He was aware of das ist, the irony. The man he had once watched with awe had become, in his view, a symbol of the very industry trap he was fighting against. Simmons's brand-first mindset, his willingness to swap out people to make light of serious matters, served Mustaine as proof that in the business of rock and roll, the human cost is often swallowed by the spectacle. Next, as number 5, is James Hetfield. Dave Mustaine joined Metallica in the early 1980s at a moment when the young band was poised on the brink of change. He stepped in as lead guitarist after a local ad by drummer Lars Ulrich, and he himself recalled Riley that one day, "I was in the room warming up and I walked out and asked, 'Well, am I gonna audition or what?' And they said, 'No, you've got the job.'" From the start, he carried ambition. From rehearsals in Los Angeles to early demos, he worked feverishly to craft riffs and to help shape what would become Metallica's aggressive identity. During his tenure, Mustaine co-wrote riffs and songs that found their way onto Metallica's debut album Kill 'Em All and the follow-up Ride the Lightning. His creativity was undoubted, but so too was his volatility. He admitted that while his bandmates drank and partied, his behavior drifted into darker territory. "I would drink and have fun until someone would refute something I had said, and then that was war, baby. I'd be aggressive and confrontational because I was a violent drunk. I lost all inhibitions when I was drinking, and that didn't go over too well in the end." That drinking problem and growing aggression built up to a famous incident. Mustaine brought a guard dog to rehearsal, and the dog scratched the paintwork of bassist Ron McGovney's car. Hetfield allegedly kicked the dog in return, and Mustaine punched Hetfield in the face. "I kinda earned that myself," he later admitted. "I slugged James in the mouth, and what would you do if someone pelted you?" That moment crystallized tensions that had been rising for months. On April 11th, 1983, without warning, Metallica told Mustaine he was out of the band. He described it as "no warning, no second chance." The abruptness stung. Instead of flying back to California, he was given a 4-day bus ticket from New York's Port Authority bus terminal. He was kicked out at dawn with his gear, his dream collapsing. In the aftermath, Mustaine's sense of betrayal morphed into fuel. He formed his own band, Megadeth, with the mission of being faster, louder, meaner. He later said, "After being dismissed from Metallica, all I remembered was that I wanted blood, theirs. I wanted to be faster and heavier than them." The new band exploded, the riffs sharpened, the ambition sharpened. As the years passed, Mustaine's public remarks grew. He claimed Metallica continued to use riffs he wrote without properly crediting him. "I had a reel of tape. I said, 'Do not use my music.' And of course they used it." He spoke of the animosity he sensed from strangers after his firing. You ask yourself, what did I do to you? Are you that jealous? There's a lot of people like that. Hetfield, for his part, has spoken about their relationship quietly. "There's no reason for things to not be good between us. At the end of the day, it's just journeys. Everyone is doing a different journey. Why would you hold a grudge with someone, or vice versa?" His tone attempted to accord, but Mustaine remained unconvinced the wound was healed. Number 4 is Lars Ulrich. From the moment Mustaine was shown the door from Metallica, he carried with him a fierce sense of betrayal, one he long pinned squarely on Lars Ulrich. He believed that Ulrich had been intimately involved in the decision to remove him, betraying the trust of the band's early formation. In his words, "Lars wanted a percentage, and I just said no. The songs are already out there. I'm not going to release something just to have a product to sell, especially if they are perpetuating false information." For Mustaine, this was not merely a personal vendetta. It was a matter of credit, authorship, and identification. Within a few years after that exit, Mustaine found himself locked in what he viewed as an unjust battle over royalties and writing credits. He argued that many of the early songs had been written by him and frontman James Hetfield, and yet Ulrich was listed as a co-writer or had a share. As Mustaine once bluntly put it, "I wrote all of Mechanics and Jump in the Fire, and I won't give anything to Lars Ulrich." The dispute even resurfaced around the delayed reissue of the demo tape No Life Till Leather from 1982, where Mustaine claimed Ulrich stood in the way by insisting on credit he did not earn. He was adamant. On the record, it says Lars gets 10%, and on Metal Militia, that Kirk Hammett gets some of it, and he wasn't even in the band at the time it was written. To Mustaine, the financial and creative cut-up was clear proof that Ulrich had been complicit in sidelining him. And what really stung Mustaine was the absence of any olive branch from Ulrich. He felt ignored, unacknowledged, and excluded. When Ulrich addressed him in a rare interview about those earlier sessions, the tone was dismissive. "So put these 3 facts down. He was in our band for a year. He never played on a Metallica record official release, and it was 22 years ago. It's pretty absurd that it still can be that big a deal." That statement, in Mustaine's view, encapsulated the real wrong. His efforts were erased, his voice muted, and no genuine attempt at reconciliation was made. Even more, Mustaine watched Ulrich's choices beyond their shared history. Ulrich's campaigns against file sharing, his aggressive business posture, and the way he leveraged Metallica into the corporate rock colossus, all fed Mustaine's narrative of the industry being its own antagonist. On one occasion, Mustaine quipped of Ulrich's legal posture. "Does he have enough money? Probably, right?" That cynical tone held more than sarcasm. It held resentment. Ulrich, for his part, acknowledged the meeting with Mustaine in the documentary Metallica, Some Kind of Monster, and conceded the scene was accurate. Yet by framing Mustaine's grievances as old news or as complaints from someone who was in our band a year, he added insult to injury. He may have had a soft spot for Mustaine, as he once said, but to Mustaine the gesture rang hollow. In the end, Mustaine did not call Ulrich evil because of one riff or one dismissal. He used that word to describe a system where Ulrich, as a gatekeeper, wielded power over both memory and money. In Mustaine's telling, the move wasn't just about being kicked out of a band, it was about being written out of the story. And when he refused to hand over what he believed was rightfully his, he refused to play into what he saw as the industry's deeper betrayal. Coming in at number 3 is his former manager, Corey Brennan. He had once trusted the man who promised to steer him back to the top. In late 2014, Dave Mustaine had tapped Corey Brennan and his firm 5B Artist Management to take the reins of a career that, by Mustaine's own admission, needed rescuing. Brennan arrived with industry contacts and a steady hand, born from years at Sanctuary Records. Over the next 9 years, 5B retooled Megadeth's touring strategy, shepherded new records, and helped stage a comeback that culminated in milestones the band had not seen in years. Those moves read like a revival. Bigger venues, stronger campaigns, and, crucially, a Grammy that the band had not held before Brennan's tenure. But success carried a shadow. Behind the scenes, relationships frayed, small tensions widened, and contractual obligations quietly calcified into conflict. In April 2023, Mustaine abruptly cut ties with Brennan and 5B, replacing the longtime manager with his own son, Justice. The termination was swift, and according to Brennan, without reason. Within months, Brennan filed suit, alleging that commissions on touring and merchandise had been withheld and that more than $1 million remained unpaid for work. 5B had performed. The suit painted a picture of a partnership that had unraveled, not for business failings, but for personal preference and convenience. Brennan's legal team framed the narrative bluntly. Howard King, speaking for Brennan, argued that 5B had resurrected a struggling career and that Mustaine's decision to sever the relationship was both sudden and unjust. King said that Mustaine had terminated 5B artist management after 9 years of their having resurrected his failing career, and that Mustaine had then simply refused to pay commissions owing and forced 5B to file a lawsuit. The words carried the weight of betrayal, a manager insisting he had been cut loose after pulling a superstar back from the brink. Mustaine fought back with legal filings that read like a counterattack. His lawyers painted Brennan's tenure as punctuated by errors that had not only cost opportunity, but had damaged the band's reputation and even Mustaine's health. In court papers, Mustaine's team alleged repeated management failures that dealt serious blows to Megadeth's reputation and even David Mustaine's physical health, a claim that pointed to profound distrust and a rupture greater than unpaid invoices. Those were not casual accusations. They became the backbone of a countersuit aimed at proving negligence and breach of contract. The courtroom choreography that followed was messy and public. Headlines tracked the back and forth, each side assembling evidence, witnesses, and a narrative meant to sway a judge and the court of public opinion. For fans, the dispute felt both small and seismic, a reminder that the machinery behind music could be as combustible as the songs on stage. For industry observers, it was a textbook battle over commissions, loyalty, and control, with the odd, uncomfortable detail that Mustaine's son stood ready to assume duties once performed by a man who had helped orchestrate the band's revival. Ultimately, the fight over unpaid commissions reached a conclusion that many had expected, but few wanted to see in black and white. In November 2024, Mustaine and Megadeth agreed to a settlement that required payment of $406,006 to Brennan and 5B, including a personal payment to Brennan. The payment resolved Brennan's claims over commissions, but did not extinguish Mustaine's countersuit, leaving unresolved questions about management decisions, accountability, and the cost of ambition. At number 2, there's Sean Parker. In 1999, the peer-to-peer service Napster emerged almost overnight. Founded by a group of young programmers and backed by Silicon Valley money, Napster promised free music sharing at scale and changed expectations at a moment when the music industry was still reeling from the transition to digital. Its reach was immediate, and for many listeners, it felt exhilarating. Music everywhere, instantly, no barriers. But to many established artists, it felt existential. By April 2000, Metallica filed a lawsuit against Napster, claiming the company had enabled massive copyright infringement of their catalog, including an unreleased track, I Disappear. Drummer Lars Ulrich later described it as a street fight. This wasn't about money. Frontman James Hetfield reflected that he did not quite know what they had unleashed. Among those watching with concern was Dave Mustaine. He saw the explosion of sharing not just as a legal fight, but as a cultural rupture. In a 2012 interview, he declared, "Myself, I think this is the dude who created Napster probably ruined hundreds of thousands of people's lives because of that peer-to-peer file transferring." He added that, though technology would inevitably evolve, the scale and speed at which Napster changed expectations left artists vulnerable. While Napster's founders like Sean Parker later moved into other ventures and made peace with some of the original opponents, the early years remained toxic. Parker's later friendship with Ulrich and investment in streaming alternatives underscored how rapidly the battle lines shifted. But for Mustaine, the damage was already done. The model had been reset, and artists were scrambling to remain in control. He criticized not only Napster, but the cultural moment it ushered in. The good thing I like about the internet is it makes it real easy to deliver your product to your fans at an affordable price. But there is piracy and people who steal. They don't realize it is intellectual material. Giving something to get, that's the deal. If you get something and the person doesn't get anything in return, that is either a gift or you are stealing it. He believed Napster represented more than lost sales. It represented a devaluation of craft. Even though Mustaine acknowledged that Napster was only one part of the evolution, he saw the service as a tipping point. "We used to trade tapes. That's how we even discovered bands," he recalled. "I don't know. I can't blame Lars for doing the things that he does. Who knows why a guy does that? I mean, does he have enough money? Probably, right?" The statement carried a sardonic edge, but its underlying message was clear. The terrain had changed and the rulebook no longer made sense. For Mustaine, the industry's battle with Napster was about trust and value. He believed artists were built on the idea that their music had worth, that someone invested in it, listened to it, paid for it. Napster, he argued, shifted that assumption overnight. The backlash that metal bands like Metallica faced, being pilloried as greedy while crusading for rights, demonstrated how deeply cultural this fight had become. In retrospect, Mustaine saw Sean Parker not simply as a tech entrepreneur, but as a catalyst for a wave that swept past artists and left many scrambling. Napster did not just share files, it rewrote the terms of engagement between music maker and listener. And at number 1, we have David Ellefson. Their relationship began in 1983, shortly after Mustaine was unceremoniously dismissed from Metallica. Arriving in Los Angeles, Mustaine was driven by vengeance and a revolutionary vision for thrash metal. He found a willing partner in Ellefson, a young bassist, who matched his intensity and devotion to the speed and complexity of the genre. They met in a shared Hollywood apartment complex, bonding over metal, drugs, and the singular goal of creating the fastest, heaviest band on the planet. This alliance quickly became the core engine of Megadeth, transforming Mustaine's fury into intricate, aggressive music that defined a generation. The two musicians operated as a unit for nearly 2 decades, yet the foundation of their partnership was always fraught with underlying tension. Ellefson often played the role of the band's diplomat and ambassador, a foil to Mustaine's notoriously volatile temperament. But this dynamic of co-founder and frontman was shattered in 2002. Following a severe arm injury Mustaine sustained, Megadeth temporarily disbanded. When Mustaine eventually decided to revive the group, he was determined to restructure the partnership on his terms. This led to the first catastrophic schism, the 2004 lawsuit. Ellefson launched an $18.5 million legal action against Mustaine, alleging he had been defrauded out of his fair share of profits and ownership. Ellefson maintained that the band had started as an equal partnership, yet Mustaine had unilaterally assigned himself 80% of the corporate shares. Mustaine, meanwhile, viewed the legal maneuver as an act of profound betrayal. He saw his longtime partner attempting to seize control and profit from the entity Mustaine considered solely his own creation. The case was ultimately dismissed in January 2005, with the court ruling that Ellefson had signed a valid settlement agreement, forcing the bassist to walk away with nothing but public humiliation. The personal cost was immense. Mustaine admitted that he was deeply wounded by the things Ellefson had said about him during the proceedings, marking the end of their friendship for what seemed like forever. In a twist of fate, the two men reconciled 5 years later. In 2010, after a chance encounter and a heartfelt apology from Ellefson, Mustaine decided to forgive him. "I completely forgive you. I love you," Mustaine reportedly said, ending the years of silence. Ellefson returned to Megadeth, filling the massive void in the lineup. However, this reunion came with clear terms. Ellefson was no longer a co-owner or a principal partner, but a salaried sideman. This arrangement fostered a quiet resentment, creating an already strained and precarious professional relationship built on past wounds and contractual restrictions. They continued to perform successfully for another decade, presenting a unified front to the world. But the brotherhood was merely an illusion, maintained for the sake of the band's brand. The final, irreversible collapse came in May 2021. Sexually explicit videos and conversations involving Ellefson and a woman who was not his wife were leaked publicly. The bassist immediately denied any wrongdoing, stating the exchange was consensual and shared privately. However, the damage to the band's public image was immediate and immense. Mustaine, citing the band's reputation and his own deeply held personal convictions, made a definitive choice. He issued a statement confirming Ellefson's departure, noting that given the already strained relationship, what had been revealed was enough to make working together impossible moving forward. For Mustaine, this was the ultimate confirmation of a flawed character. The bassist, whom Mustaine once described as the guy that I know and love, was now viewed as fundamentally compromised, a different person whose actions repeatedly risked the Megadeth legacy. This final act of public scandal, combined with the earlier betrayal of the 2004 lawsuit, cemented Mustaine's decision to sever ties permanently. Mustaine publicly acknowledged he forgave Ellefson as a person, but stated firmly, "I just won't play music with him anymore." Mustaine chose to protect the empire he built, demonstrating a ruthless commitment to the business and reputation of Megadeth. In Mustaine's view, Ellefson became more than just a former bandmate. He became the embodiment of the chaotic, destructive forces Mustaine constantly fought against in his life and career, justifying the belief that a truly good man could not commit such repeated destructive offenses against the bond they once shared. The result was a bitter conclusion to one of metal's most significant partnerships. There you have it, the 6 most evil people in the eyes of Dave Mustaine. Do you think Mustaine got his list right? And who do you think is the most evil amongst them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section.